These stories always begin the same way. A long time ago, on a quiet, calm day, the world was invaded by a demon king, and the nameless hero appeared. Everyone seemed to be waiting for him, and they met in a decisive battle. As a result, the hero defeated the demon king, sacrificed himself and saved the world, and the villain plunged into a deep sleep underground, preparing to return again. This is such a banality that was uttered 1,000 times, and meanwhile peace and tranquility reigned in the world and a hero. The author of this story is unknown, but the fate of such a hackneyed story is repeated again and again forever and ever, and a lot of time has passed since then. In the present, an unknown monster burst into the chambers of his master, saying that trouble had come to them. The destroyed body of the demon king asked the man what was the problem, and the servant immediately knelt down and said that Demiurgos, 666th, had just left the castle as soon as he woke up from the egg of awakening. The servant loudly shouted that this creature had renounced the powers of the demon king. The Lord looked at his servant and said that this was complete nonsense, and the servant began to stutter and apologize for such news. After this, the servant took out the contract and said that the last words of this man were written on it, which said that he did not want to be the king of demons and asked everyone not to look for him. Immediately after this, our hero got out into the human world and, looking at it, noticed that it was quite beautiful, after which he headed to the Akoma castle of the Verde Kingdom. The man looked down with the thought that the human world was truly pleasant, as he had been told. He ran through the streets of the city and enjoyed the warmth of the sun. The only thing that bothered him was the huge cross above one of the buildings. Suddenly, our hero was stopped and asked why this hillbilly was walking around here and where he came from. The guards immediately approached Demiurgos and asked why he was hanging around doing nothing, and Demiurgos was surprised that they called him a hillbilly. He looked at his clothes and decided that it was because, in his opinion, everything was fine with his face. And meanwhile, the guards continued to ask how he dared to wander around this castle. Had he completely lost his fear? After that, one of the guards pointed his weapon at our hero and asked his name. The guy immediately thought about it and decided that he couldn't call himself here by his real name because it sounded too strange. Then he snapped his fingers and decided that if he just threw out a couple of letters, it would do. The man smiled and greeted the people, saying that his name is Deus. Suddenly, another man appeared, looked at Deus, and asked how his tongue turns to pronounce the name of the ancient god. Doesn't he know that this is the capital of the Verde Kingdom? The guards immediately bowed down to Baron Bruo, and in the meantime the Baron said that if he made a mistake out of ignorance, this time he would simply forgive him and ordered him to get out of here. Deus, meanwhile, smiled and asked and removed the kingdom so strong? The Baron looked with hatred at our hero and asked what he was talking about. Our hero smiled again and asked if his body was suitable for the role of a king. The Baron immediately went crazy and took out his blade and said that for insulting the royal family, he would pay with his own head. After these words, Deus was able to tear off everyone's heads with one glance. The rest of the Passions looked at all this in surprise and could not understand why their friends just went and exploded. Our hero smiled again and ran his finger through the air, and the rest of the holiday heads also flew up. The archers noticed this and began shooting to kill. But Deus protected his body with a special aura and easily deflected all these arrows. After that, he used a necromancer spell and revived the people he had just killed. He said with a smile that it was time for them to welcome their new king. After that, with a fiery speech, he said that they should praise the beginning with their blood and bless the return of this body with their tears. The rest of the knights immediately began to prepare and talk about the fact that they were attacked. Someone even said that a war had begun, and they were told that everyone outside had already been killed. A couple of minutes later, a huge crowd of knights stood near the castle, but as soon as our hero came close to them, he easily threw away his thoughts with force. The man looked at them and said that they would fill the horn with their cries for his sake. The knights looked at this monster and could not believe their eyes, and meanwhile Deus continued to advance on the castle. A bloodbath began, and the knights entered into battle with their recently revived comrades. Our hero amused himself and sent various curses on these knights, but they could not believe their eyes and begged to kill them so as not to feel this hell. Meanwhile, our hero, with a huge smile, watched everything he did. Suddenly, a man appeared in golden armor, who began to pray on his knees and ask the Lord for help against this monster. This man had long golden hair, and he prayed to God, with the words that victory would come with them, and about death to victory and from lies to truth, he prayed to his Lord. After this, the man began to take out his blade, and it is said that the Lord will give him strength to crush the evil standing in front of him. Finally, he completely took out your blade and stretched it out in front of him with the words that evil must come down to him and take the fight. Deus, meanwhile, smiled and asked if this was the light of the aura, and the same blood that he had heard about. Meanwhile, the man with golden hair looked at our hero and said that he does not know who he is, but he clearly sees that this man uses black magic, and he cannot believe that he managed to break through the castle security on his own. The golden-haired knight looked at the demon angrily and said that he could not defeat the Blessed Lord. After that, he swung his huge blade and said that, although he was not a pureblood, he could defeat Deus. After that, he fell with all his might to the ground at the place where our hero had stood before. He thought that he could defeat the demon with one blow, but suddenly he heard someone say that this knight was nothing special. When the dust settled, the man saw that it was a demon holding his blade with its fingers and saying that now it was his turn to attack. Our hero looked at the knight and also began to read prayers, asking him to kill this idiot in front of him. Our hero said with a smile that he had just also prayed to check which of them the gentleman would help. And a moment later, our hero with one hand was able to pierce the body of this huge knight and instantly kill him. After which Deus turned around and asked to never mention God to him again. The knight with golden hair could not believe his eyes, and also that he had just lost. After that, Deus headed to the throne room, where he saw that there was already a mountain of guards who wanted to give their lives for their king. The king looked at our hero in surprise and asked if everyone else had lost to just one person. And the knights tried to calm the king down and say that they were the last line of defense and they needed to defend their positions at all costs. The king was silent for a while and in his heavy voice asked our hero who he is. Deus, meanwhile, calmly approached the king and said that he was apparently the king of this castle, and therefore they could talk. The knights immediately became furious and said that Deus did not dare address his majesty like that, and for this he would be punished. After that, our hero smiled and snapped his fingers, tearing their faces to shreds. He was silent for a while after that and asked, "Are there any people still dissatisfied here?" The knights, who had just been completely confident in themselves, had already begun to doubt whether they could defeat this person or not. Deus, meanwhile, said that he liked such circumstances much better, and they jumped into the air. After that, he opened his wings and instantly found himself in front of the king, asking if they could continue the conversation. Meanwhile, the king was scared to death and asked what our hero wants, because the king can give him money, the weak, and everything he can. Deus looked him straight in the eye and said that he didn't need all this, asking him to give it to the king of his kingdom. The second king immediately began to shout that this was simply impossible, and this had never happened and would never happen. Deus yawned and said that he didn't need anything else from this king, and if he didn't want it, our hero would simply kill him and his entire family and his kingdom and go to Deus. Suddenly, the king screamed and said that now he understands everything and this guy just wants to take his daughter. Deus scratched his head and said he was braiding that he was not interested and he didn't know that the king had her. Meanwhile, the king said that this was impossible because April is the pride of the continent and the flower of their state. Deus was tired of listening to all this and, looking at the king, asked him to keep quiet because he did not need any daughters or anything else except the kingdom. The old king continued to shout and ask our hero why he wants what does not belong to him. Suddenly, Deus looked straight into the king's eyes with his ominous gaze and asked, "Does he really think that everything here is his?" The old man immediately began to say that this is so because the kingdom belongs to the royal family. Deus looked at this king with a dissatisfied look and asked since when did he think so. After that, he began to explain to the king that this world was not that it was created for this king. In the end, he also stole someone's power. So what the hell is it? In this case, the royal family is here. If he had been sitting on this throne for decades, then it's time to rise because it's time for a generational change. The old king continued to shout at our hero and ask whether Deus really thinks that the saints will approve of this. As soon as our hero heard the word saints, he immediately laughed, a crazy laugh. After that, he opened his wings to full power and said that he didn't care about them. The flash of his power spread throughout the kingdom, and the huge cross was immediately blown up and fell to the ground. And the king and all his knights were already burned. Examining the king's corpse, our hero decided that it seemed he didn't have blood. After all, if he had, the king would have lasted a couple of seconds longer, and that's just the full extent of it. After that, Deus looked up and told God that he was very disappointed because these guys were not prepared at all. Having calmed down a little, the hero said to himself that he would have to wait a little longer before the blood awakened and there were still about 20 years left. After that, the guy thought that he should have appeared in the first place. Unexpectedly, our hero heard someone's pitiful cry. He looked back and saw a beautiful girl who, with tears in her eyes, asked who he was and what was happening here. The demons who lost the first war returned to the underworld with the broken soul of their king and moved it into a new body, and for 100 years they filled it with all possible types of magic and curses in order to resurrect him again. Later, a new war came, and they all believed that no more hero would appear and victory would be theirs. But another fucking hero appeared, and the demons lost the war again. After this, the demons again nursed the new king for 100 years. And this time, too, another hero ruined everything. The demons did not despair and spent another 100 years raising a new king. But this time, the hero also appeared, and this continued 665 times. It was a tired cliché where a hero comes and saves the world, a carefree time when people believed that the hero would definitely appear when he arrived on time. In the underworld, every time they think that this is the most final ending of all finals, and they persistently create new kings. This time, the demons put absolutely all their strength into creating a new 666 demon king. When the ceremony was completed, after 100 years the curse of the entire human race opened its eyes on this very day. He ran away saying that he was not going to be the king of demons. Meanwhile, the girl with tears in her eyes was now standing in front of this 666 demon king and was discarding that he killed her father. Deuce looked at the girl and did not understand why she bothered him at all. Suddenly, I remembered how the king, foaming at the mouth, argued that April was the pride of the continent and the flower of their state. He looked at the girl and asked, "Is she Princess April?" The guy smiled and said that since he was the king of the dead, it was time for him to take his daughter and ascend to the throne. The girl with tears in her eyes could not believe what she heard. After that, Deus pointed his finger at her, immediately subjugated her mind. The girl fell on one knee and said that her insignificant body now belongs entirely to Deus, and she asked to take her away from her master. Deus flew up to her on his wings and took her by the chin and said that from now on she was his first person. The girl thanked her master for such generosity, and Deus said that he did not allow her to speak, and the next time he said that he would gouge out her eyes for disobedience. After this, our hero noticed a strange aura, and turning around saw that some kind of eye had appeared, and from it they began to say that nothing less was expected from their lord. After that, a portal opened, and a man came out of it, all in black and white hair. He said that his name was Alex, and he was a faithful servant of the Demon King. Deus looked at his servant and asked if he had been following the Demon King all the way, and the servant immediately bowed and said that wherever his milord went, he would follow him. Deus said that this is all complete nonsense because Alex serves the father of our hero and not Deus. The man bowed again and said that Deus's body was created by his ancestors with his own hands for many years, and now only he is the lord of all demons. After that, our hero pointed his finger at him and asked him to shut up, saying that he was not going to return to the demon realm. Alex smiled and said that the will of the Demon King is law for him, and he will not contradict. He also said that he is here to carry out the orders of his king and asked not to pay attention to him and to continue and not be distracted. Deus looked at his servant and asked what he was going to do. Alex looked at the princess and said that King A was most likely going to reward this woman with his powerful seed. After this, his servant said that he had been serving his king faithfully for 80 years, since he was still a soul. The man began to cry and asked his king if he wanted to hear about the church that he had to bring, which you can't tell without tears and wine. Alex began to say that when our hero was still a baby, he had to change his body in order to breastfeed Deus. Deus stated that it was his perverted idea, and Alex continued to talk about how he became an exemplary teacher thanks to his bottom-up approach to teaching. Deus immediately said that he remembers perfectly how he beat everything he could out of him. Alex also stated that he was the only demon who surrounded our hero with love in the Egg of Awakening. Alex closed his eyes and said that he couldn't believe how our hero grew up, because just yesterday, he was running around next to everyone when he was tiny. And now he has already discovered women for himself. And Alex also said with a smile that he is an overly emotional person. Deus asked his servant to shut up and said that he is not a demon king because today he was reborn as an ordinary person. Alex smiled and said that everything would be as his master wished. Deus looked at this man angrily and asked what he was up to. The servant said that he did not understand what his master was talking about, and our hero immediately used magic to twist his servant and ask what he was up to and why he agreed with absolutely all the words. Alex immediately began to apologize and say that he was asking for forgiveness and can explain everything. After that, our hero stopped the torture, and his servant said that he did not understand why our hero chose this country. Alex said that, for example, His Majesty invaded their territory or would demand to give up wealth and kingdoms of demons, or he was simply in a bad mood, There are different reasons, and he is interested in finding out the reason. The man thought for a bit and said that he didn't have any reason, and he just decided that if he were a man, then he wanted to be at least. Our master's servant immediately folded his hands as a sign of respect and said that these words were worthy of the king of demons. And as soon as he arrived on Earth, he immediately captured a huge kingdom and killed the king and also took his princess. And this is just a wonderful villainy, because it is best for there is no such thing as a demon king. Alex said that an ordinary person or a high-ranking demon would not have thought of such a thing in everyday life, and praised our hero with the words that he was a born demon king. Our hero was greedy for flattery and smiled, inside thinking that this was the real truth. After this, his servant stated that if the great lord says that he is leaving the kingdom of demons and will not become their ruler, then all he can do is take our hero's son down and raise him as a new king. And on the appointed day, 20 years later, his son will become the demiurge 6666, and they will force him to appear on Earth. After that, our hero smiled and said that he was not going to become a father so early at the age of 80. Our king's servant wanted to say something, but the man seemed to shoot at him with his energy. Deus, with an angry face, said that they simply decided to set him up. Meanwhile, the servant looked at this demon and thought that he was completely different, because the demonic field inside him was still growing. But he already had enormous power, and 666 was undoubtedly different from his predecessors, and perhaps this time, and not finally, they could win. Meanwhile, our hero was talking about the fact that he was not going to be the king of demons because he stood out too much and decided to become a fighter for justice and a hero. The man was immediately surprised and asked what he was talking about, and our hero continued to explain that he would be the hero's assistant and will be with him, so others will recognize him, but at the same time, he will be one step behind him, so as not to stand out too much. And the last thing, everyone will begin to suspect that the hero's friend may be the king of demons. The man smiled and thought that he would reap the fruits of a demonic life, covering the dumb hero with his broad back. Deus laughed and said that this guy would do all the dirty work for him and the glory would go to Deus. Meanwhile, Alex was lying at his feet and said that there was not even a smell of heroes nearby and how he was going to become his assistant. Deus immediately smiled and flew up, saying that then they would find the hero. After that, Alex asked what they would do with the princess, and the man said that he knew nothing and ordered his services to figure it out himself, to which Alex asked, "Is he not at all interested in such a nice girl?" Our hero replied that he was just bluffing. Meanwhile, someone was watching this whole incident through a glass ball, and they announced to an unknown person that 666 was born somehow defective, and not only his origin leaves much to be desired, but his intellect is also not strong. To which the man replied that it would be even better because he only needed his strength, and he also thanked his seer for this information about our hero for his timely appearance. This unknown person turned out to be a girl who spoke out loud to herself and said that she was apologizing for borrowing the powers of these people for a short time. And she said that she was sure that she would be forgiven, and that in the end, everything was going strictly according to the intended scenario. A couple of days later, Satan, along with his servant, lay on a cart and sang songs about how he would rather find a hero so that he would be his blunt shield. Meanwhile, his servant was talking about how they actually know how to fly, and they don't need a cart because it only causes problems. But Satan asked what he was talking about. Satan took a deep breath and asked our servant, "Is he really a moron and plans to shine his demonic wings on every corner?" After this, the servant pointed to the castle that they had just destroyed and asked our hero, "Is it really from the one who just destroyed the whole kingdom?" But Satan just yawned and said that he doesn't care about all this. The servant calmed down a little and asked Satan if he was really going to become the hero's companion, to which our hero replied that you can be a hero even without blood, and he just wants to enter the 2% of the richest people and enjoy life, and his friend the hero will mess with the monsters. Satan's servant said that even if they become the hero's companions, it will not be easy to enter the top 2%. To which Satan replied that here is the past king of demons and one of the great 7 of the demonic world. So you don't have to worry about anything at all, and the hero watches the greeting of the dragon. Like a chicken. If they help him a little, the servant listened to all this and said that it seemed to him that he would like to be a human, but plans to use magic. Satan looked at his servant and asked loudly, "Why should he not use magic if he can?" After this, Satan asked his servant if the heroes had some kind of hierarchy or something like that, to which the servant replied that there was a system of ranks. Satan asked the services, "Is it really something like a rank or B rank?" To which Alex replied that it is. The servant began to tell that first comes D rank, and such heroes are called dragon slayers. Satan yawned and asked, "Is this title given only to the one who kills the dragon?" And the servant replied that now, neutral dragons and demons and dragons that destroy the settlement towards people remained only in fairy tales, and this only means that the strength of this hero is enough to kill a dragon. After this, the servant continued to say that after this comes the G rank, which is called the giant killer, and this means that this hero is capable of slaying a giant. After him comes the L rank, and such heroes are already capable of killing Ilyich. Satan asked why there were so many, and why they were named randomly, to which the servant replied that next everything will be in alphabetical order. Satan continued to lie on the hay and ask why they named these heroes out of the blue, and why everything looks even more boring what he imagined. To which the servant replied that he did not know, and so decided to control the heroes. The servant also stated that the F rank comes last, and they are called fig heroes. The servant continued to explain and say that if such heroes became fruits, they would be rotten apples because they are simply worthless. Satan looked up at the sky and said that bullshit heroes sounded pretty sad, and he wouldn't want to be like that. And the servant began to talk about the fact that the higher the heroes, the more support they can receive from the nobility, or occupy a more important post in the country, and the crappy heroes are only neglected. And also the servant replied that such heroes are completely undesirable and people hope that they will all disappear soon, because the human world is very merciless. After that, Alex looked at his king and said that there is something more important than the ranks of heroes. Satan said that he already knows that in this world there is the power of blood, and the purer your blood, the stronger you are. And it was the first saviors of this world 580 years ago. The hero and priestess had pure blood, and now their children and their children's children have this blood. Therefore they continue their line of holy blood, and its quantity in families is carefully measured, and the purer the blood in the family, the stronger the aura available to its member, and the owner of the purest blood becomes a hero who fights with the king and wins, and this happened 665 times. Satan said that he would definitely not be 66, and said that it turns out that if you focus exclusively on the purity of the blood, then the owners of the least diluted get the highest ranks. The servant stated that this is so, but said that there are exceptions. But still, usually it is she who determines the level of power. Satan yawned and said that there was something wrong with all this purebred nonsense, and as if there was some kind of bloody spoon, and he was stuck in an egg for a whole 80 years because of the war. Meanwhile, the servant continued to say that everyone takes pure blood as seriously as possible and puts their life and honor on the line for its sake. Satan, meanwhile, just smiled and then yawned again and said that he actually didn't care about all this and he just wanted to talk about everything. But after that, he added that usually, every time a hero and a demon king fights, and the war has been going on for 60,000 years just because of this one phrase, the servant on the cart said that this was a promise, and they had no right to break it. Satan looked at the sky and asked, "Can't they all just live a normal life? Like this cart that moves very slowly and calmly?" After that, Satan stood up sharply and said that he saw something. He asked his servant what it was and said that it looked like a leaf that was flying around, looked at it, and said that it was an ordinary butterfly. Our hero extended his finger and a butterfly landed on his finger. He looked at it in surprise. But after that he sneezed, and the butterfly flew away. Then Satan asked the servant what it was just now, because something just flew at him and ruffled his hair, and the servant answered with a smile that it was just an ordinary wind. After this, Satan looked up and said that he saw something white from above, and it had been hanging on the ground for quite a long time, and with its heads. And the servant replied that these were ordinary clouds. Then our hero covered his eyes and said that there is something else up there. Round. If you look at it for a long time, it hurts your eyes. Tago answered that it was the usual sun. After that, our hero inhaled everything deeply and asked what this sweet aroma was that made his heart drag in, to which the servant replied that it was the smell of spring. Satan was silent for a while and asked the servant, "How long has he been living?" The man was silent for a while and replied that he was born after the first war, like all 7 dukes of the demon world. Satan looked at the clouds and said that it has been going on since the first war. This man comes up here every 100 years, and this is a great time, because this place, which is called the surface, is incredibly beautiful. After that, Satan said that the past demon kings there had probably never experienced such feelings. And our hero said that if everything had been as they had planned, he would have remained underground for another 20 years, and would have died at the hands of a hero whom he had never even met before. Satan said with a smile that he was very glad that he was able to escape from this vicious circle, After that, he smiled and said that the Demon King is a work that should not exist and laughed. The servant did not answer anything. Meanwhile, our hero lay down on the hay and said that he planned to sleep a little and asked not to wake him. He also said this so that they would wake him up when they finally arrived and asked him to accept the fact that if he decides to quietly drag him into the demon world, then they will both die. The servant said that she understood everything and wished Satan pleasant things. After a couple of hours, the servant turned and looked at his king and said that they had finally arrived. The man immediately raised his head and said that he did not expect it to be so quickly. The servant began to explain that the place they arrived in is not very active, and there is also little trade here, and there are no people nearby, so it is literally a sample of the ordinary, and the village is called Zorix. Our hero smiled and asked how things were going with the heroes, to which the servant replied that there are only 2 families of the first A rank, but they are already quite close to the Gur rank, and another one is Fig. Satan was surprised to discover that in such a place there was not even a dragon slayer. And the servant immediately replied that if every castle had heroes with such a rank, then their army of demons would not even think about rising to the surface. The hero asked if this rank was really that strong, and was frightened and replied that it was. Satan looked at the ordinary people who were discussing that one of the castles nearby had recently been attacked by a dragon, and it had not even been caught yet, so the men warned the women not to even think about approaching this castle, and someone said that, according to rumors, this castle burned to the ground. The girls who heard this said that according to rumors, dragons became extinct many years ago. And someone began to say that it turns out that the age of dragons is coming again, and if the legends do not lie, then real hell awaits them. Satan looked at his servant and stated that he had heard from him that dragons were neutral. And the servant said that for some reason it seemed so to him, but the last time he was on the surface was 80 years ago, and a lot could have changed during that time. Meanwhile, people were discussing that they needed to quickly notify the saints about this, and they should send a dragon slayer hero here. After this, the servant looked at his king and said that they had arrived at the best hotel in this district and could stay here. And our hero said that they still had no choice and asked them to stop calling him king or lord, and it was better to just call him master. The servant did not understand the last word, and Satan declared that he should now be called master. And then he looked at his servant and said that it was time for him to go and pay for their rooms. As soon as the servant entered, the head of this tavern greeted him and said that he was very glad to see our guests in the golden tent. The servant smiled and asked this gentleman to give him a penthouse, because his master is a very picky person. Meanwhile, the owner of this hotel was angry because our heroes were wearing the clothes of some Silyuks, and he thought that they were clearly not worthy of a penthouse and said that our heroes probably came from distant lands, and did not know that the penthouse was quite expensive. After that, the servant threw such a treasure chest on the floor and said that money was not a problem for them. The old man immediately started shouting at his servant and asking why he wasn't accompanying these clients yet. The guy immediately ran up and fell to the ground, saying that it was his mistake, and immediately apologized. Meanwhile, the old man asked him to move quickly and serve these dear guests. The guy said with a smile that he welcomed such wonderful guests to his hotel. He also said that his name was Zeke. And meanwhile, his nose was bleeding after the fall, and he said that he would take them rich, so he asks them to just follow him. The man raised a heavy chest and said that recently, because of the news that the Sunset Dragon had returned, it was now quite noisy. After all, no one could have thought that a legendary dragon would appear, but he immediately added that there is no need to worry about it because a famous one lives in their village, a rank family, and this is quite encouraging. After that, the man opened the door of the room and said that the gentleman can be located right here, and this is the pride of their hotel. The man said that, to be honest, this is the first time he has met such distinguished guests, and said that he does not know whether the service will satisfy them, but he will do everything in his power, so he asked them not to hesitate to contact him at any time. Satan looked at this guy and said that he definitely felt that there was blood in him. The man wanted to answer something, but he immediately began to stutter, and Satan said that now he understands why this guy feels completely different. After this, Satan began to say that despite the fact that he is a blood carrier, he is in very bad shape. Moreover, he works in such a place, and it turns out that he is from the second family, which is called Fig. And in his family there have been entire generations of blood purity below ground level. After that, Satan looked him straight in the eye and asked how this guy is doing with the purity of his blood. The man immediately blushed and smiled and said that unfortunately he had the lowest rank. Immediately after these words, the roof of the hotel was destroyed, and everyone saw a huge dragon in front of them. The women and children immediately began to run away, and the men also did not lag behind them. Meanwhile, Zeke shouted that a dragon had attacked them. After that, he looked at the gentleman and said that they urgently needed to run away. Satan just smiled and said that before that his servant had said that dragons were neutral. His servant immediately got angry and said that he was just clarifying that he was not sure. Zeke tried to reach out to our heroes. And meanwhile, Satan finally stopped laughing and told the secretary that he would support the guy who works in this hotel on the path of becoming a hero. Satan also said that he was looking for a hero in any case, and it was just fate that they were here at such a right moment. So he asked the guy to accept his offer, and he would give him weak riches that I never dreamed of, even his father. And he would also save him from that damned fig hero brand. Satan looked him straight in the eyes and asked this hero whether he wanted to live the rest of his days as a Frank who had never even held a sword in his hands, or would he go with him and change his fate because such a chance is given only once in life? The guy looked at all this and couldn't believe his ears and eyes, but inside he remembered that all his life, he had heard that the purity of his blood was so low that it was simply ridiculous. And he also heard how people don't understand why there are such things in the factory children. After all, they will grow up to be a disgrace anyway, and they will be lucky if they don't die of hunger. The man remembered all these words that he had heard during his life and immediately fell to his knees in front of Satan, asking him to bestow his support on this young man. He also said that despite his rank, he would still make absolutely every effort that he could and even more. He said that he swears that this man will not regret giving him a chance. With tears in his eyes, the guy said that he was even ready to give his soul for such a chance. Satan said that he planned to claim his soul anyway, so this is even better. After that, Satan smiled and said that this would be their debut, and it was time for them to hunt the dragon. And Zeke, with a nervous voice, asked, "Shouldn't they start some goblins?" And Satan and his servant here laughed after hearing these words. After that, Satan directed his hand at this guy and said that now they will conclude a contract. After that, fire and flames ignited in front of them, forming a contract in which Satan was party A, and Zeke, the hero of Frang, was side B. The conditions stated that Zeke would have to obey the orders of Satan and also choose him as his companion in heroic exploits. It was also indicated that Satan himself will decide how long the contract will last and can terminate it himself, and all glory and riches will belong to Satan, and he himself will decide whether to transfer them to Zeke. Zeke looked at all these words and thought that this contract was not completely honest. After this, Satan smiled and told his hero to say his name if he agreed, and the contract would be concluded. The man took another look at this contract and screamed his name at the top of his lungs. After that, Satan smiled and raised his finger up and said that today will be their debut, and they will kill this dragon. Suddenly, the servant looked at Satan and said that ordinary people cannot kill the dragon. Satan immediately smiled and said that because of this, he would simply pretend to kill and Satan and his servants would do the rest. Also, Satan said that according to the plan, Alex will have to get close to the dragon by slightly beating it, and then he will have to throw it in front of the hero's face. And the hero will, in turn, have to swing the ball at the falling dragon, and for all spectators, it will look like this as if he had come and killed the attacking dragon. Zeke listened to all this. I couldn't believe my ears because this plan sounded very strange. The servant looked at his king and said that people might find it suspicious that such a hero would just take and defeat a dragon, and besides, the role of a D-rank companion would not allow Satan to live peacefully in this world. After that, Satan and his friends smiled and looked at the hero who was surprised and asked why they were looking at him so much. Satan smiled and took the pan, made 2 holes in it and put it on his head and said that a masked hero had now appeared. Instead of a mask, there was a pan with holes, and instead of a cloak, he had his clothes made from a uniform. Satan also said that the hero must be in a cloak and shorts, and now no one will know about him. The unexpected appearance of a mysterious game sounds very cool. Satan's servant smiled and said that in that case it was time for him to go and kill the dragon. After this, Satan said that it was time for them to go down with his hero. The man blushed all over and asked, "Does he really need to look so stupid to fight a dragon?" But after that, Satan kicked the mop into his hands and told the hero not to forget his holy sword. Satan smiled and said that our hero will just have to stand there and hold this swap. And when the dragon is right in front of him, he will have to kill him. And then the weak will be provided with riches beyond even his wildest dreams. At this moment, Zeke felt something strange that he could not understand now, but suddenly he clenched his fist and seemed able to destroy everything in his path. He had a mad desire, the root of which was something in the blood, the instincts of heroes sleeping in his hemoglobin. The hero's blood yearned to tear the demon king standing next to him into pieces. However, in the head of Zeke, who did not know about this, the words were spinning that looking into the eyes of Satan, he was filled with courage, as if he could do anything. After that, he ran with a crazy rose to pretend that he was killing the dragon. People on the street were trying to escape this city and begging for someone to come and save them. Meanwhile, the dragon flew and burned the entire city. At the top of the church, meanwhile, a remnant servant appeared, standing elegantly on the cross and looking at all the people. Suddenly, the dragon noticed his gaze and decided to head towards this man to kill him. But Satan's servant took on his true form and took out the rest of his hands. After that, he jumped on the dragon in order to kill it. Once on his neck, the man swung and struck at his scales. After some time, he tore it into pieces and was able to get to the dragon's heart. Then his hands clasped this heart, which was beating like crazy. After this, the servant said that now the heart of the dragon is in his hands. Therefore, he will have to obey. And first he asks, answer the question, why did the dragon always fly? Because there is peace between people and dragons. The dragon did not answer. And in the meantime, the servant of Satan noticed that his body was engulfed in some kind of curse. And the dragon himself did not speak clearly. The servant would have listened to all this and asked the dragon how a dragon like him could know such a dirty thing, and asked what kind of parasites were on him. And he also said that there was clearly something wrong here. Meanwhile, our hero stood with the sword in his hands and was ready to pretend that he was killing this dragon. He looked up and saw that the children were watching him with thoughts about why he wasn't hiding. Does this guy really want to fight the dragon alone? They also said that in such an outfit, he looks more like a pervert, which greatly embarrassed the hero. He thought inside that this was the real Sadavaya, and fear and embarrassment were mixed in his stomach. Meanwhile, Satan waved his hand to the hero, saying that this guy in the mask should go save this city. Everyone else immediately heard that Satan called him a hero and decided that he really was a hero and began to thank him for such courage. The guy was still embarrassed, but he grabbed his mop with both hands, thinking about what it was. A chance only comes at once in life and he shouldn't miss it. Meanwhile, Satan's servant sat on the dragon with the thought that most likely this dragon would be very difficult to control, and in this case he had no choice but to use his trump card. He cast a spell in demonic language, and 100 demonic hands immediately burst out of his back. They all grabbed this dragon and began to control its actions. After that, with one of his hands, he pierced the heart of this dragon. Suddenly, just before his death, the dragon finally spoke in normal language, telling them to get ready because the dragon saw that the one who should be the honey had returned. Immediately after this, unknown parasites began to attack Satan's servant. He immediately realized what this was all about and looked at the purple tentacles. Satan, meanwhile, looked into the sky at the dragon and thought what his servant was doing there, and why he did not come down for so long, because the audience had been waiting for quite a long time. He looked at all this and picked his nose with the thoughts that his servant decided to talk this dragon to death. Or in another case, he simply could not kill him, which would be very strange. After some time, the dragon finally began to fly towards our heroes, and Satan asked his hero to be ready because the dragon was approaching. Satan also told our hero to choose the right moment and cut with all his might. The hero looked at this dragon and how it was flying at full speed straight at the hero and said that he did not want to be touched. Satan smiled and swore on his own name that he would not let this guy die no matter what happened. The heroic blood in the veins of this guy immediately began to actively move and fill him with strength and determination. After that, he took the necessary stance and said that he would now use the radiance of the moon, the first technique. Meanwhile, the servant resisted the parasite that was trying to consume his body. He thought that I was trying and that these problems were stressing him out a little. He noticed that his body was starting to weaken. So he decided to use 100 demonic arms. After that, he began to wave them in all directions to get rid of this terrible parasite. Finally, when the parasite became weaker, he got scared and immediately grabbed him by the head and tried to pull him away from himself. Satan watched all this and thought that his friend was gradually descending, but still moving somehow too strange. Satan smiled and thought that it would be nice if his servant slowed down, because otherwise their hero would be scattered along the street. The servant, meanwhile, continued to fight with this parasite and at the same time control the dragon, which he was not very good at. Meanwhile, the hero, incredibly, was afraid of fear with the thought that the dragon was approaching and had almost killed him. Satan came down from here and called his servant, saying that he was doing something strange and it was time to slow down. But as soon as he looked at this dragon, he saw that his servant was desperately fighting with an unknown purple parasite. The hero, meanwhile, held Slava as tightly as possible with the thought that no matter what happens, he is still not going to move and will kill this dragon with one blow. He immediately remembered how, as a child, he was taught the first technique, the radiance of the moon. His father smiled and said that it was a secret sword art that was passed down from generation to generation in the family, and he also said that his son should learn it before the demon army invades again. The boy told his father that the neighboring children were telling him that he could not participate in the war with the Demon King because their family was too weak. The man smiled and said that it doesn't matter what others say because blood flows in their family's veins. The holy blood is a hero, and without a doubt, his son will become a wonderful hero and will also take part in the war. The man cleared his throat and said that the hero should study very nicely. The boy smiled and said that he did just that. At the right moment, the hero swung a mop and said that he would now use his ancient family technique. He closed his eyes because he was afraid that he might die now, but as soon as he opened them, he saw that he was covered in blue blood. Looking around, he saw that there was literally nothing left of the dragon. All the residents immediately began to rejoice and triumphantly talk about the fact that this hero was able to defeat the dragon, which means that he was sent by God. Meanwhile, Satan shouted that it was time for this hero to quickly change clothes and hide. The hero immediately began to run away. Meanwhile, the servant stood at the top of the church and his face was clearly struck by unknown magic. He looked at the dead dragon and remembered his last words that the one who should be dead would soon return. The next morning, Satan woke up and said that he slept incredibly well. Meanwhile, his servant was surprised that Satan got up so early and offered him coffee. The servant approached Satan, dressed like a butler, and said that they say that people's morning begins with coffee. Suddenly, a hero burst into the room and turned to his master and said that they had problems. The guy with a smile on his face said that all the residents are actively looking for the masked hero and are constantly discussing that they want to make him the first hero in the village. Satan looked at what this hero was wearing and asked what happened to his clothes. The guy smiled and said that since the village had been in ruins since yesterday, he helped with the clearing this morning, and the work paid quite well. Satan took the first sip of coffee and said that he understood everything, and everything was going according to his plan. After that, he looked up and said that he incredibly liked waking up under the invigorating rays of the sun and enjoying aromatic coffee. He thought a little and said that in the morning on the surface it is many times better than underground. The butler said that this coffee is made from the tongue and left eye of the dragon, so he is very glad that this taste satisfied Satan. The street was in full swing, and everyone was trying to quickly put the city in order after the terrible defeat. Our hero again went to help. With a smile on his face, they loaded him with stones and told him to finish quickly because there was still a lot of work. Satan watched all this and wondered why these people are trying so hard to restore their village. He also noticed that even this guy, whom they consider to be their personal hero, works tirelessly. The servant smiled and said that he spoke with this guy yesterday, and he said that he had been working since childhood and constantly plowed, and his family was poor, and raising a hero is not cheap. So washing, cleaning, chopping wood and digging graves, that's all he did, and it's easier to list than what jobs he did not work at. The Demon King listened to all this, and the servant continued to talk about how this guy even managed to work in an underground bar. Meanwhile, Satan listened to all this and said that he had already decided everything. They had finally found a hero, and traveling just like that is boring, so they will start their plan. In this village, and although it is small and insignificant, it somehow managed to hook Satan. After that, Satan smiled and said that it was time for him to go, and this hero must work. The servant asked where they would go, and Satan replied that they would sell dragon skin because it is used to create equipment and is then very expensive. The servant said that the hero's control took everything at night. After that, the servant said that the corpses of dragons are very heavy, and ordinary people certainly cannot carry them away. Satan immediately began to get angry and say that they did not receive anything at all for killing this dragon. After that, Satan stopped a little and told his servant that right now they would go to control the hero in order to destroy him. The servant looked at his master and said that this was a bad idea. But Satan had already given up on all this and said that the control of the heroes is their main base, and they must destroy it. The servant immediately stated that no matter how much more master he is, he will not be able to defeat them all alone. And if they also realize that he is the king of demons, then everything will be over. The servant was silent for a while and said that before this the master wanted to become the hero's companion. The servant immediately realized that he needed to say that in the human world, in order to become a hero, you need to register with the department, and if they destroy him now, then no one will recognize their hero. After that, the Demon King thought a little and said that in this case there was no hurry, and the servant was happy that he had just prevented the destruction of the demon race. Satan looked at his servant and replied that in this case they need to go and make up for the losses at the expense of the neighboring party. The servant immediately apologized and reminded his master that he now wants to be a man, And Satan said that he will become one tomorrow and said that its time will head to a neighboring country. The servant thought a little, and a couple of hours later, when they were already heading to another country, he asked if it seemed to Satan that enjoying the surface was already enough, and it was time to go back, because the demon world awaits the return of its king. And until that day, there are only 20 years left and they are not. They can waste time, and the guys need to quickly learn the art of the Demon King in order to take over the world. Satan smiled and said that this was not his problem, and he did not see a single reason to do this only because someone else wanted it. The servant looked into the distance and said that the Demon King would appear and attack the human world. He was silent for a while and added that the phrase had become so familiar that no one even considered it something forced anymore. And 665 kings, before our hero, and the whole world demons as well as people who will be attacked, are as natural as breathing for all of them. Satan smiled and said closed that he would work as he wanted, because otherwise God would not be needed, and he also added that his servant should come to terms with the fact that there would be no more Demon King and think about it. The servant immediately looked at Satan and shouted that in this case, he should at least make a child who can become 666 king, and it doesn't even matter who the girl is. Satan asked in surprise how it didn't matter, and how his servant looked at him to blurt out that, let's add that the word of a demon is immediately visible in it. The servant looked at our demon king and said that he would not leave until he gave up an heir who could be taken down. The demon king said that in this case he would have to accompany him forever as a servant. The king's servant smiled and said that in this case he could find him a girl who would suit him. The demon king warned his east that if he talks about marriage again, he will personally destroy the entire world of demons and leave no stone unturned. After this, Satan asked how it even works. The servant turned in surprise and asked what exactly Satan was talking about. Satan was a little embarrassed and asked if it would be possible to do this with the princess they met. The servant asked, is the Demon King really talking about sex? And the Demon King immediately began to get angry and say that he was just talking about pregnancy, and how can a person get pregnant from demons? The servant smiled and said that of course this can happen, and added that the method of reproduction in humans and demons is identical, and usually in human men, the seed is produced in the testicles before eruption. And as soon as the sperm enter the female uterus, one of them penetrates the egg, and the fetus ripens from 37 to 42 weeks. Satan said he wanted to ignore sex education. He also added that if the Demon King wants, he himself can make demonic sperm automatically flow into others, so that any direct interaction will lead to pregnancy with a 99% chance, and added that in the event the sun drops to 50 and from a simple smack, the possibility only 25% get pregnant. Satan looked at his servant in surprise and asked, is it really possible to get pregnant from an ordinary kiss? And he raised his finger up and said that you can get pregnant simply if the girl is held by someone's hand, like the Demon King. The guy immediately lay down on the hay and said that this body seemed to be created for reproduction. After that, he said that the more he learns about his body, the less he likes it, because he already understands that the purpose of this body is to kill and reproduce. The servant looked at our hero and declared that his body was blessed, and he was the hope and salvation of the entire world of demons, and this was the ideal body given by God. The Demon King, meanwhile, said that he is just a piece that is created again every 100 years, and he does not like this feeling of many expectations placed upon him. After which he looked at the servant and asked what he thought about it. The servant wanted to answer, but he stopped, because he and Satan noticed that to the right of them, a girl was running away from hundreds of men on horses. When they looked closer, they noticed that it was not just a man, but some huge monsters and a girl who looked like a nun, and was running with all her might. The girl saw our hero's cart and, with tears in her eyes, began to beg for salvation, saying that bandits from the mountains were chasing her. The servant said that the beautiful lady was in trouble, and asked his master if he would go to save her, to which Satan said that he did not understand why he should do this. And the servant replied that in this case, something good could happen. The Demon King thought for a moment and said that this all looked rather suspicious. The guy said that the girl suddenly ran in their direction, with screams, to which the servant replied that this is a common phenomenon, which is called a beauty asking to be saved from being chased. Satan, meanwhile, continued to argue that there was nothing around them, so it was not clear where they came from, and even if they took them out of the forest, it was too far to get to it, and what was more important. Satan looked at her servant and asked if he thought it was too suspicious that all these mountain bandits had never noticed the cart during the entire chase, and continued to run just after this girl. After this, Satan looked at his servant and asked if his servant really built all this himself, because he wanted, with the help of the girl, to conceive his heir. His servant smiled and said that in the demon kingdom he was considered the greatest strategist and would never approve of such nonsense. Meanwhile, the girl had already run up as close as possible to the cart and took hold of it, asking for help. She called Satan a hero and asked him to help her get rid of these bandits with tears in her eyes. The guy said that he is actually not a hero but just his assistant and cannot help in any way. The girl cried again and said that it didn't matter to her who it would be, a hero or an assistant. She was still asking for help because the bandits were already very close. After that, the Demon King smiled and said that they were actually a party of a high mass, and hunting dragons was their destiny. So it was not proper for them to dirty their hands with both incomprehensible bandits from the mountain. The girl smiled evilly and wiped away her tears and said that this guy was quite stuffy. Satan heard this and pointed his finger at her and said that she had just sworn. The girl began to cry again and said that she was very much asking the hero's assistant to do a favor for weak young girls. Satan did not give up and tried to accuse her of lying. And meanwhile, a huge axe hit near him. He was thrown by one of the mountain bandits, who said with a smile that they should run away from here as quickly as possible along with their worthless cart if they were to live. He said that now his beautiful carriage is broken and because of this, he needs to be punished. He looked at the bandit and ordered him to burn with an eternal flame. His body was immediately enveloped in purple flames and he began to fight with himself on the ground and says that it is very hot. The others looked at him in surprise and our hero declared that it would never be possible to put him out. After that, Satan said that no matter who tried, no matter what by-magic they used, this man would never go out and die again, and now his fate was to burn for eternity in agony. Then Satan looked at everyone else and asked, "Doesn't anyone want to keep company? This person?" They immediately began to run away and say that they were mistaken and apologized for disturbing this man. The girl immediately smiled and thanked our hero, to which he said that she should now disappear from his eyes. But the girl said that the bandits had captured her temple. The girl said with a smile that they captured this temple, and also took all the priestesses as slaves and collected holy relics, so she asked to know them and free the temple. Satan yawned and said that this was actually not a level, and he definitely wouldn't do something like that. After that, he ordered his servants to quickly leave here, and the servant immediately said that he would listen to his master. Suddenly, the girl realized that she needed to say something else and asked if they were talking about dragons. Then most likely they are companions of another naked hero, and stated that their temple was captured by bandits. And this temple stands on a dragon and the top of the god of dragons himself, and this is the true temple of the golden dragon. Therefore, if they help get rid of them, then they will reward them with the real helmet of the golden dragon. An hour later they had already arrived at the right place and began to climb the mountain, and our hero's servant asked his master to just fly there and not walk. To which Satan replied that he was actually not the king of the demons anymore and they would get there on foot. In this case, the man asked to at least carry the master on his back as expected, because in this position his hips were about to fall apart. To which Satan said that the question was at stake in the honor of the kingdom of demons, and the servant immediately reminded him that he's no longer a king. Pouring profuse sweat, the man said that it still looked too suspicious. He looked at the girl and said that she had already been running for half an hour and was not tired at all. He said that the mountain is too steep and that the girl has an ordinary human body and cannot survive such strong loads. Satan smiled and said that he absolutely didn't care who this girl was, and the servant looked at his master and asked what he was talking about, to which Satan replied that he had no idea what was on her mind. Well, if she did, he would have to take him off scalp from her head and defiantly put it on herself. He also said that he was surprised when the girl talked about the golden dragon, because he had not thought before that dragons could worship some kind of golden god. The servant immediately began to explain that everything was different, and it was like the demon realm, where the demon king was worshipped, and the true golden dragon was at the top of the hierarchy of all dragons and was not a deity. Because for demons, for dragons, and for people, for all living beings in this world there is only one God, and this is the Creator. Satan looked up and decided to say that it turns out that people are this God's favorites, and demons and dragons are just for extras. The servant said they braid it so that Satan would not doubt because God is the only truth and perfect love in this world. And if they could take the horse blessed by God's light, then the demons would clearly be the favorites. The servant, meanwhile, was already barely walking, and our hero said that this is a very perverted way of expressing love. Finally, they arrived, and the servant immediately fell exhausted, and Satan, meanwhile, stood on him and said that he was grateful for the fact that they gave him a ride. After that, he decided to step on the ground, and accidentally walked over the head of the servant, calling him a rag that fizzled out so quickly. After that, the man looked at the temple and said that he expected that on the way back they would go the same way. After that, they went inside the temple, and our hero greeted the priestess, saying that he did not see bandits anywhere, and the helmet of the golden dragon, so he asked to give it while he was in the mood. The servant, meanwhile, with great shortness of breath, said that he had a bad feeling about this place. They began to peer into the darkness, and suddenly the dragon opened his eye and illuminated the room with a golden color. And the priestess said with a smile that the heroes had come a very long way, and apparently the lackey's intuition was much better than that of the demon king. Satan smiled and said that the girl looked like the same bandit who sat in the temple and asked, "When what did I do with the helmet?" The girl looked at Satan and asked how dare he open his mouth. Doesn't he understand what position he is in? And she immediately advised him to bow his head in front of them. The girl's eyes lit up and she said that the god of all dragons is the law, and the mother of dragons, the one to whom the god of dragons obeys, the only true golden dragon, is the golden dragon. The servant immediately looked at the demon king and declared that the true golden dragon was in front of them, and they had been lured into a trap. The girl began to laugh and ask our heroes if they were surprised that she exceeded all their expectations, after which she called them stupid mortals and clearly made it clear that she did not understand who she was talking to. The girl looked down at them and said that they could start begging for mercy, and maybe she was laughing. Our guy repeated the words she said and said that it sounded great. The girl was glad that he had finally gotten enough of everything, and said that as a sign of repentance for our heroes, she was entrusting them with a request. Meanwhile, Satan said that he wasn't talking about that at all, and just said that the mother of dragons sounds cool, and he also wants some kind of cool nickname. After that, our hero looked at his servant and said that every time he thought that something was missing in his presentation, and asked his servant what other titles could he attribute to himself. The girl clearly tensed and coughed loudly, telling them to pay attention to her. After that, she got angry and threatened them to stop talking nonsense, and also said that now they should bow down and beg for forgiveness. Don't they feel guilty? Our hero said that he does not remember that he crossed paths with this girl somewhere. The woman looked at him and, pointing her finger, said that they killed a dragon yesterday and she is the mother of all dragons, which means that they killed her child. The guy laughed and said, "Did she really understand the fuss over such nonsense?" The girl stamped her foot on the floor, and at that very second she found herself right in front of our hero's face. She asked with a smile, "Does he think this is nonsense?" After this, the girl announced that now she is not in her golden jade kingdom, and from here, they will not be able to escape. And she also stated that even if he were the demon king, he would not be able to defeat her in this space. The servant immediately began to tell our hero that if they are in the golden jade kingdom, then they should definitely leave because even Satan cannot defeat her in this battle. The girl smiled and said that our hero's lackey was not stupid at all. Then she decided to reveal all her cards and said that she knew that now the 666th Demon King was standing in front of her, and he must kneel. Meanwhile, Satan asked her if she continued to behave this way even after she found out who he was. He smiled and said that even if she is a true golden dragon, he can still take her face. And he also told her to prepare because now he will rip off her skin and will do it very slowly. The girl wanted to say that he did not dare talk to her like that, but he immediately put his finger to the lips of the mother of dragons and asked for silence. After that, he looked her straight in the eyes and said that the girl must apologize for her lies. She looked at him with her surprised face and asked what he was even talking about. The guy put his hands in his pockets and said that he would be honest with her, and he came to the surface not to cause outrage, and she knows this. He only wanted to live among people like the hero's companion and watch them all from behind the shadows. And with such thoughts, he arrived in the village, and then a dragon crawled out of nowhere, burning and destroying everything in its path. The guy said, looking straight into her eyes, that he had no choice but to kill him because he acted in self-defense, and the girl at that time did not even bother to show her face. But immediately after that, she decided to play priestess and to deceive the demon king. And then the theatrics began with these golden dragons. He once again looked her straight in the eyes and said, did she really think that he would just resign himself and beg the lady goddess for forgiveness or something like that? He continued to ask her, does she really think that if she is a former being, then she can do anything? And asked, are all dragons like this? The servant immediately joined in and said that his master was right, and to think that you can do anything simply because you have the strength to do it is a huge delusion. The girl, meanwhile, could not believe her ears that these two were scolding her. And the servant said that it is obvious that anyone will fight for their lives, and added that it was the dragons who were the party that violated the peace treaty, and therefore they should ask for an apology. Satan said that his servant was right, and looked at the girl to ask, did she deserve to ask for forgiveness? He also began to make faces and say that it is parents who are often the root of problems. When it comes to difficult children, the girl began to make excuses and say that she cannot be called a real parent and she is rather a metaphorical mother of dragons. After this, the servant looked at her and asked, "Is she really trying to avoid responsibility and wants to enjoy the rights of a goddess, but at the same time refuses the responsibility that they bear?" Satan continued to say that such people always blame their children for all the problems. However, if you dig deeper, it turns out that the problem is in the parents themselves because they do not pay even a drop of attention to their offspring when they start to row, and then they also take the children aside, and their reputation all parents fall because of a girl like this. The servant added that one cannot turn a blind eye to this incident, and as a representative of the dragons and as a true golden dragon, she must take the responsibility to apologize and admit that the dragons violated the peace treaty. All this nonsense caused the dragon goddess to bleed from her ears. She grabbed her head and said that something was wrong here, and why was she the only one to blame for everything? Satan and his servants immediately turned around and said that only she was to blame and told her to quickly let them out of this jade closet or whatever she called it. The girl asked them to stop at least for a second and try to listen to her request if they ended up here anyway. Satan looked at her and said that first she needed to at least apologize, and maybe they would listen to her request. The girl hesitated, and the guy immediately turned around and said that if she doesn't want to apologize, then he doesn't care. Suddenly, the girl asked them to stop and looked down and said that she was very sorry. After that, Satan came up to her and patted her head. He said with a smile that it turned out so-so, but if he insists on leaving the dragons, then he accepts her apology. The girl tensed up and told her that this was looking more and more like nonsense. But she said that she was still a generous goddess, so forgive me. Satan smiled and called the girl a lizard, saying that he was ready to listen to her request. The girl's face immediately changed, and she said that if we explain it in a nutshell, then our heroes must hunt dragons. Our hero began to laugh and say, "Is the mother of dragons asking the demon king to kill everyone who is like children to her?" After that, he began to beat her, not with all his might, and to say that she was a complete fool if she thought that he would believe in this because it was an obvious trap. The servant looked at them and asked the dragon goddess, "Is it really all because of the purple parasites?" The servant immediately began to say that there was something in the dragon's body, and the thing looked like parasites, and it felt like it had taken control of the dragon's mind. The mother of dragons immediately said that this is the reason, and there is now a split in their world of dragons. And this is the fault of the extremist bastards who oppose peace with people. And that dragon yesterday was just a bargaining chip for these radical outgrowths. The mother of dragons looked up and said that it was very difficult to worry about the death of her loved ones at the hands of people. She also added that she was already sick of hunting her children for materials to create weapons, and those who had experienced such things gathered together and now represent themselves as extremists, since all three sides must be neutral. The mother of dragons sadly said that they, blinded by rage, used an unknown but extremely powerful magic that enslaved those living in the world and set them on the village to reignite the war between people and dragons. The girl sadly said that this is the only reason why she wants to stop her children who have strayed from her upbringing. Satan said that he understood her thoughts, and the girl was not talking about hunting dragons, but in fact asked to save peace-loving dragons from death while they were controlled by parasites planted by extremists, or something like that. The girl said that everything was true, and Satan asked her what he would get in return. The guy said that if he gives something away, he must get something in return and he won't work any other way. The girl looked at him with a serious look and asked what he wanted. The guy took out his palm and showed that he wanted as many as 5 dragon scales. He immediately said that everyone knows that weapons made from dragon scales are the best, so he wants as many as 5 of them. He also said that equipment forged in the flames of dragons costs more than 1,000 gold on the market. The girl smiled and said that he was completely insolent. The guy snapped his fingers and said that she could think as she wanted, but then a contract appeared in front of her face, which stated that he undertakes to complete the task about the extremists and hand them over to the golden dragon. However, he must receive 5 dragon scales for each dragon, and weapon worth at least 1,000 gold will be paid the next morning after completing the task. And in case of violation, the mother of dragons will become the slave of the demon king. After that, he kisses and said that she can read it and familiarize herself in full. And the contract will come into force as soon as she says her name, and this is a contract with a demon, so it's better not to be cunning because her soul is at stake. The girl then said that she knew all the rules and shouted the name Golden Dragon. Satan smiled and said that the contract was concluded. After that, he turned around and told the girl to quickly open the doors because he wanted to deal with this as quickly as possible. But suddenly, the dragon stopped him and declared that he must capture all the dragons alive, because she would no longer allow new deaths. As soon as they left the temple, our hero laughed and said that it turned out even better than he expected. But suddenly he tried to go back to the temple and shouted the name of the mother of dragons. The servant asked what was the matter, and our hero replied that he forgot to pick up his helmet, which they had been coming here for so long. After that, the man shouted to all the mountains that one day he would tear off her head.